I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong.
Hi there! I have been thinking a lot about the future lately. That's not always a positive thing, as it suddenly dawned on me that I eventually will be retired.
You're getting too old for this shit.
And at that point, the macro and markets could decide how I can live, and I could be at the mercy of the markets and the sentiment. Meaning, if I have a very nice growth portfolio with all the high runners, yes, I might have a 20% gain in 1 year, and maybe a minus 10% next year. Or I could risk having a lost decade, like we had from 2000 to 2013, where the market went nowhere. If we run into a longer period without growth, or even a bear market, my portfolio could be cut in half, and I could risk not having enough money for my retirement.
And it's gone. The money in your account. It didn't do too well. It's gone.
Whoa! Half of the viewers just left the video, just because I said retirement. But hey, stay with me here. It will actually pay off in the long run. If we look at the S&P 500 and the performance since inception, or at least when we have reliable data from 1957 until today, the S&P 500 has appreciated with around 11,000%. That's pretty good. But if we look at the down periods, the S&P was in the red 30% of the time. The Nasdaq was hit even harder in periods. Statistically, there's a high risk of your portfolio to be hit during retirement. Well, that's nothing new. Macro, we either have an exit strategy from our high conviction growth stocks.
What the hell? You think this is a funny game?
Toodaloo, mother suckers.
Or we need some kind of diversification. Blah, diversification. Diversification across our complete net worth, so we can withstand the risk we did not see coming.
I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow.
Shout out to Morgan Housel and his great book, The Psychology of Money, which I actually just made a video on. That's a must-see. Morgan is great at simplifying what other people make very complicated. Morgan Housel states, the most important part of a plan is planning on your plan not going according to plan.
Can you repeat the part of this stuff where you said all about the things?
I don't believe many investors were prepared for the 2020 COVID crash. I actually was a bit prepared for this, but that's another video. If the government had not started the money printer on overdrive, the recovery could have taken years or maybe even a decade. Had I been in retirement and my portfolio suddenly got cut by over 30%, and if that had lasted 1 to 2 years, that would have been catastrophic. I know I could have managed at least 6 months with my emergency fund, but what after that? I would still have to sell my usual 4 to 5% of my shares every year. Let's say I had 1,000 shares of Tesla and they were worth, let's say, 1,000. That would be around $1 million. With a 30% drop, I suddenly only had 700,000. But I would still need to sell shares to finance my lifestyle. Of course, assuming I had no other form of income, etc. Just 2 years of this kind of downturn would cost me an additional 43 shares. Now imagine this happening several times over retirement, and the share value does not increase in the missing amount of years. That would be detrimental to a portfolio. Yes, that's why I started a dividend portfolio. Yes, you heard right. Dividend portfolio. Wow, what an old geezer. Whoa, wait a minute. Dividend portfolio? What are you, 60 years old? Nope, I'm just trying to be prepared. And it will take me some time to shift my high-growth companies over to a dividend portfolio. Of course, I won't sell my Tesla shares before it hits one of the benchmarks I have for selling. I will sell around 1,500 shares at approximately $1,500 a share and keep the rest for later. But I'll know that when I get there. Yes, I know, even dividend portfolio can be hit. Some companies suspended their dividends back in 2020 and could do it again. But the risk of that is a lot smaller than a correction and/or market crash. This actually brings me to another of Morgan Housel points: having too much cash waiting for something crazy to happen. I will usually have around 4 to 6 months of expenses in a money market fund like VMFXX, Vanguard Market Fund, giving me around 5% and being highly liquid. But after my epiphany, I am now planning on having a full year of basic expenses in that account. It's only around $35,000? As Morgan Housel says, it should feel like it's too much, and almost everyone will tell you how stupid you are because of opportunity cost, etc. But just as Morgan says, this can actually be the best investment ever. Not needing to sell or make any rash decisions, as you have a great base of security, giving you that extra comfort of knowing that almost nothing can derail your life. If you lose your job for a prolonged period, no problem. If the economy turns into shit for a year or two, no problem. If your car breaks down or you need fixing or a new car, no problem. If something in your house breaks or the rental break, don't worry about it. Etc. You name the event, stuff happens, and it almost always happens at the worst possible time. And if it happens in retirement, that could be very bad for you. Think about it. 40 years ago, your retirement party was literally your funeral. Now people want to retire early, maybe even in their 40s. So you would have to have money for around 50, 60 years? Here I just wonder, why don't people find jobs they love and would do even if they weren't paid? I have that issue. My wife would like me to stop working now, but that ain't happening. At least not right now. I'm having too much fun and great colleagues I work with. So, I want a portfolio that pays me no matter what. If the market goes up, the market goes down, the tech sector gets hit, or something else. I want a base income that's guaranteed, or at least fairly secure.
All right. So no matter what, I'm gonna get some money.
Enter the dividend portfolio. I know there are risks involved here too, but usually a great dividend payer does not take that many chances, so the risk of needing to shift into another company at a loss is not that high. But now we have the problem. Which dividend companies should I put my retirement portfolio in, and how much should it be? I need to figure out the amount I would need and work my way back from there. I have my retirement accounts maxed out, so this will be a normal portfolio which will be taxed when selling. I already know that I need around 45,000 after tax to cover all expenses and live well. And I still have my normal retirement accounts, pensions, etc. on top of this, so I could manage with a lot less. With that amount, the tax I would pay is around 27%, which would mean I need around 60,000 before tax to be sure I'm covered in this portfolio. If we assume I get at least an average dividend of 5%, that would mean I need a portfolio of at least $1 million.
$1 million!
I know this is a little high, but at this stage I'm only doing back of the napkin math. If I were to build it from scratch, I would start off with a portfolio like the best portfolio ever, which is another video I did, and I will be updating that one in my next video, so remember to subscribe to get that info. That best portfolio ever is a mix of ETFs, and it yields around 13 to 14% compound annual growth. Of course, it's purely theoretical, but it has done so in the last 20 years. The new best portfolio, the updated one, will yield almost 15% a year, and still using only ETFs. So get ready for that video. Or I could try finding some high growth companies and put in as much money as I humanly possible could, and as fast as I could. Regardless, I need to have a plan.
I have a plan.
And maybe even have found the companies for the dividend portfolio before I get there. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. I already know I would need around 5% in dividends after tax. This naturally limits the companies I could use, or maybe a dividend ETF, but let's look into that. It would be nice to have some sort of guarantee that they will pay out for some time, so I would start looking at the dividend groups. The dividend achievers. This is companies who have raised their dividends 10 years in a row or more and are on the New York Stock Exchange or the Nasdaq and have a 3-month average daily trading of $1 million. There are around 400 dividend achievers like 3M, Microsoft, etc. Or dividend contenders. They are companies raising the dividend for between 10 and 24 years. This list is similar to dividend achievers, but since it's capped at 24 years, the number of companies is a lot smaller. Currently, there are around 340 dividend contenders. Next group are the dividend aristocrats. These are companies that have raised their dividends for 25 plus years and are a part of the S&P 500. In addition, they must have a minimum market cap of 3 billion and 5 million average daily trading volume for 3 months before rebalancing. At the end of 2023, those were 68 companies who were members of the dividend aristocrats. The number is relatively small because of the stricter requirements. Companies on the list are like IBM, Colgate-Palmolive, Coca-Cola, AT&T, and so on. Next one is the dividend champions. Ooh. Like the dividend aristocrats, however, the only requirement is they have increased their dividend for 25 or more years. Consequently, the number of companies on the list is only around 150. The big companies on this list are 3M, Sonoco, etc. The last category is the dividend kings. To get this status, a company must increase the dividend for 50 plus years. 50 consecutive years or more. There is no other requirement. However, that is not an easy task. Currently, there are only around 50 companies on the list. It's companies like Federal Realty Trust, Emerson Electric, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble. But as we know, I need at least 5% yield, so this disqualifies a lot of the companies. So what did I do? I have found some possible companies that fit my criteria. It's a stable business, has a high certainty of being able to pay dividends for a prolonged time, paying at least 5% or raising dividends so they will reach their 5% soon. I haven't looked into inflation adjustment, as I believe my picks will increase the dividends with around the same as inflation. If you need a process or method to find these dividend companies, you can use almost any platform, though the really good ones require subscription. Something like Seeking Alpha, but there's a plethora of others. Just search for Dividend Score and look for some with the info you want. Well, I keep a short list of companies, I have researched them, I feel confident to put my money in them, and this is the list. With this list, I always have a plan, and if I would need to switch a company with another, I have the next one right up in line. This is my current list, and as you can see, I have chosen not to use a single company. I have chosen different companies to further secure the payout and minimize the risk. In effect, I have created my own ETF. Each of them are listed with their current dividend yield and the allocation I would like to use on each of them. This way, I can play around with the composition and allocation and see the immediate results in the monthly payout cell. I won't give the deep analysis on each company, and remember, this is not investing advice. I'm just showing what I'm doing and how I think about the process. The companies I'm looking at here are selected using my own method, using my valuation sheet, so I have a fairly good idea of them continuing to pay dividends for a long time. As with everything else in life, we need to find our level of risk and weigh it against our expected outcome, and decide how will we go forward. For instance, I could put 100% in something with a crazy yield, that would most likely not be very sustainable. I have assembled a lot of different companies and chosen the ones I like the most for this portfolio. My goal is at least $60,000 a year in dividend payout after tax, so I could use $1 million as principal and find companies with a 5% yield, which would be a very conservative play. Or I could choose a few, mix and match, use more companies for the added security. But again, it's all a matter of risk tolerance and the principle. If I were to put it all in the highest dividend payer, I could get away with only needing $375,000 as my principal. But the risk is that much greater, and I'm actually trying to avoid risk. My best idea is to mix and match and end up with around $600K as a principal and still have a diversified portfolio with dividend payers and some growth. This way it's fairly diversified, although I'm pretty heavy on the banks. I have 9 companies, giving me an average of around 10% in dividend yield. And the reason for this is that I bought some of them when the stock price was really low. With this allocation, I would need around $570,000 as my principal to give me the required $60,000 after taxes. Why have I chosen these companies? Well, as I said, I know them very well, I've done my research, I have a high conviction on them, and I believe they can sustain my dividends during my retirement. And remember, even if one of them should deteriorate or stop paying, I will still be able to drop that company and choose another without any real penalty. As long as the company doesn't go bankrupt. That's the risk I'm facing with this method. Wait, what was that? I hear someone say, why don't you just invest in bonds?
Come on now, dawg. Come on, man.
Well, that's another video, and I will say, bonds can be a viable solution for people who are very risk averse. I'm just not there. I still want both dividends and some growth, and I'm willing to accept the level of risk, as this is not my only retirement portfolio. It's kind of funny that someone like me who doesn't believe in diversification and is a growth investor by heart and like picking individual stocks suddenly is thinking about dividends and diversification. Well, I believe every one of us is on a journey, and I'm convinced we all eventually end up here. It seems most investors start off with crazy YOLO bets and options and leverage. We think we're unbeatable, and eventually we hit a downturn. Then we probably switch to individual stocks and do that until a downturn or something unexpected decimates the portfolio, and we start to question our strategy once again. Then we start looking into ETFs and or diversification, maybe together with high conviction single stocks.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Next phase is either dividend investing or maybe bonds. Many investors end up holding their age in bonds to get the stability and avoid risk. This is not uncommon, and usually we get more and more risk averse the older we get, especially when we have a family and others who depend on us. So what I'm basically saying is, I'm getting old. I'm not quite there yet, and I realize the advantage of having some high growth companies for as long as I can. Then switch to dividend payers, but I want to be prepared. What about you? What is your strategy? What is your plan for the future? Do you plan to hit the like button and subscribe? I think that would be a brilliant plan. On that note, I'll end the video. Hope to see you in the next one. Remember, it's about the best portfolio ever. It's a video well worth watching. And that best portfolio is about the most secure high growth portfolio ever, using ETFs. Remember, the best investment you can do is in you. The more you learn, the more you earn. Bye bye.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong. Let's break it down for a minute. I want the crown, I'm gon' get it. You hear me loud, man, I'm winning. Yeah, Charlie Sheen will be grinning. These ladies know that I'm sinning, and this is just the beginning. I'm closing in the ninth inning, there ain't no point in resisting.